Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We are going to continue on with today listening to a special selection. That is where one of you tell me what I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Leon. I have a severe Comus addiction and there's no end in sight. I don't mind though. Song text is a bit on the heavier side. Alright, let's dive into this. We're going to listen to the song Drip Drip from the First Utterance album, which came out in 1971. Let's dive in and see what Comus is bringing to the table today.
Hanging, spinning off the mouth.
Lots of room for space, volume dynamics. The layering, I think, is the best part of all of
The
this.
soft white flesh turns past me, slaked with blood. Your evil eyes more damning than a demon's curse. Your lovely body soon caked with mud as I carry you to your grave.
Great atmosphere. I love the drum selection on this.
You stand before me, defenseless. You stare unchanging.
This dude's vocals are so good.
Sears my brain.
That syncopation is really starting to bite into this.
From your sagging lip, liquid roll down your body's spread. Your soft breast glistens, your deep navel fountains. Your shadow would share. Your shadow would share. Your shadow would share.
The whole section just is really sitting in that tension. The vocal, oh dang, that dude's got range too.
Where the sun rays dance amongst the forest and secret. Your soft lust
interesting tonal choices on the violin solo there. Getting to slip back into a more consonant harmony, but it was real tense there for a moment. I don't know if that's a vocal over there that's mimicking the violin. It sounds like falsetto to me, but there's parts of it that don't sound human. It's that same... okay, maybe it is. Where is this song going? I'm sorry, a crossfade?
Shall I cut you down?
In the middle of a song?
Yes, 'twould be a last physical communion. I'll be gentle, 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 I'll be gentle.
You know, it's interesting. Here's some indie emo in this. I think a lot of that just comes down to the lo-fi acoustic instrumentation with the aggressive vocals.
Drip, from your sagging lip. Liquid run down your body spread. Your soft breast glistens, your deep navel fountains. Your shadow over chair. Your shadow over chair. Your shadow over chair. Like a plate of a mountain.
I love this super rhythmic vocalization stuff. Dude, that vibrato. All right. So, Leon had mentioned that they had a Comus addiction and that they were fine with that, and I get it. This was very unique. This isn't something that you can just find anywhere. This is one of those bands. It's like if you've exhausted their entire library, where do you go from there? You check out some generic-ish metalcore or something, and you'll find thousands of bands that can scratch that same itch, but what? What? This is like Mars Volta, where, like I said, you can't find this anywhere else. There's no one else doing anything like this. Similar, sure. Is there, folky rock stuff out there? Is there progressive rock? Yeah. There's going to be things that are in the same general vicinity, but I've never heard anything like this. It's wild. So much music that I've listened to, and I can still be surprised. And not even going into like the avant-garde realm or brand new genres that are, just being formed or something like that. Like this is, I don't know. Let's let's talk about what they're doing, I guess. All right. This is folk rock, or at least that's what I want to call it. It feels very rock in its attitude. Part of its delivery, too. I'd almost say that there's a punkiness to the vocals, or at least punk would take cues, maybe not directly, but indirectly from the vocals here. Especially some of the grittier deliveries that we saw later on in the track. And like I mentioned, there's even parts of this song that to me feel like emo, which came from screamo, and all this came from punk. And I might have some of that backwards, but it's all derivative of the hardcore punk scene. So I don't think that the punk connection here is completely unfounded, though I don't know how direct that connection is. So there's definitely a rock punk element to it, but I think compositionally a lot of this tends to be on the folkier side. Now there's some melodies and some solos in here. I don't think they're very folk, but the instrumentation they're played on and generally the chords played beneath them very much are reminiscent, are not reminiscent of, but inspired by folk music. And I'd even say that the structure as a whole is very folky. It has some artsier ideas that it plays around with, but the general structure of it is to create a foundation, rhythmic and chordal, and not really change that for minutes at a time. What sits above that is allowed to change, but never the rhythm section itself. And that's actually how most of this is composed. You have your percussion, which sounds like a couple of hand drums. We don't have any cymbals. We don't have any drum kits. Everything sounds like small little drums that you could sit in your lap with small drum heads on them, and you would use your fingers to play them, whether you're using your whole hand or just using your fingers to create that force. I don't think we had any percussion other than that. And like I said, nothing cymbals. There's no tambourines or anything in this. It's just those. Then we also have a bass that sits in the middle, walking bass lines this entire time. You just sort of arpeggiate up the chord and come back down. I don't know if they were perfect arpeggios. I don't think they sounded like that. An arpeggio is the root, the third, the fifth, and then the octave, and then coming back down the fifth, third, and root. But it was generally walking up a chord, walking back down. I think they did throw some arpeggios in there at places, but I don't think it was the standard route that the bass took. The chords, the guitar gave us chords, usually in a very rhythmic fashion that juxtaposed what we were getting elsewhere. The bass was giving us quarter notes. The percussion was giving us all sorts of random things. Usually some sort of syncopation more so than a strong pulse. The bass is what really drove the song both harmonically, shaping out these chords, and rhythmically, giving us this quarter note beat. The percussion was almost secondary or ornamental as far as its rhythmic elements go. And the guitar fits along with that too, playing around with syncopation of rhythm more than anything else and just giving us those chords. These three instruments will lock into an idea for upwards of 3 to 4 minutes. And just, this is what they're playing. They're going to play that. A simple, 4-chord progression, and not much change. Maybe we'll get a little bit of flourish, a small modulation to what the drums are doing. Maybe they'll switch up the accent point at after like 60 repetitions. We'll just change this up a little bit. But for the most part, much like with folk music, your foundation's rather static. It's what the story is built on, whether your story is lyrical or it's musical, you have solo sections or something. The foundation just doesn't change in folk music, and they take this and run with it. They're like, you guys are locked in, and I swear, like, go back and listen to that song again. Listen into what the bass is doing. Listen to what the drums are doing. Just pick an instrument, focus on it. After you've heard 2-3 seconds worth of it, you've pretty much heard 4 minutes worth of it. They don't change. They lock in and just, there's real rigid with it. And I actually, I don't envy it, but I do kind of envy their ability to do this. I would get so bored. It becomes a mindless thing almost, where you have to become part of the music and just enjoy the process of making it, because you're just doing this one thing over and over and over. And I've always hated parts like that. I've always needed more movement when I'm performing. That might have been what drew me to the trumpet. They very rarely get these background parts. You're either not playing because it's like a woodwind section, or you are the main melody. Not a lot of in between for trumpet work. But yeah, they just lock into it, and you get this section for a very long time. It's what comes around that I think that it's what makes the song special. And there is a lot that goes around it. And it actually makes the song feel quite a bit more diverse. If you just listen to the rhythm section, you can break the song into like 3 distinct sections, I think. But when you listen to the violin, when you listen to the vocals, when you listen to all the vocals, I originally thought just like lead vocal, but there's actually multiple vocal parts in here. You start to realize that this is a very linear track, at least from their perspective. I don't think we ever hit a chorus. We never really hit anything that felt familiar. I really wanted to find some motif or something theming in here where I could say, oh, this relates back to this idea from earlier in the song, but they never really go that route. It feels like a journey, always taking one step forward, having no intention of ever returning to any place they visited before. And I find that interesting, the divide between the linear forward progression of the melody and the heavy repetition, I'm here and I'm fine being here, of the rhythm section. It creates a song that feels like it's constantly going forward, but also not evolving, not changing, not growing. It's aging up without gaining wisdom, in a sense. I find that really interesting. But these melody lines are wild. I mean, we can focus on just the vocals for a little bit, the lead vocals, and listen to all of the ways that they present different rhythmic structures, different melodic structures, different note choices, different vocal deliveries. There's this very clean, powerful, high vibrato style, and then they also have like this guttural, goblin-y sound, and like everything in between. There's one that's a bit more bolsterous with some grit to it towards the end of the song. I kind of mentioned that one felt a little punkier. There's a lot of falsetto in here that kind of feels childlike. It's almost like falsetto mixed with nasality. It's wild. there's just, to me, a lot of playfulness. It's not just about I can hit these notes, it's how do I want to hit these notes? What kind of performance do I want to put on with it? And I find that to be really interesting. I'm curious if any of those voices are going to line up with different ideas or maybe characters or concepts, something like that. Basically, I'm curious why the vocalist chooses specific tones and timbres when they do. But then we also have the violin, which sits over here, and I don't know, man. Sometimes the violin plays counterpoint to the lead vocals. Those are pretty cool. Sometimes the violin just plays a short little lick, 1 bar long, over and over and over, and kind of bleeds into the background, positioning itself more within that rhythm section, the foundation of the song, than a leading element. We also have the extended violin solo in the middle of the track, somewhere between like minutes 5 and 7 or something like that. I don't know how to interpret that. That was just, in a sense, it feels very meandering to me. We checked out Yes, like a week or two ago, and I talked about how I've come to understand them a little bit better as a band that is really good at creating a strong mainstream song with a verse and a chorus, some catchy lines in it, and then they put, like 5 minute long jam sessions in the bridge, and it extends these songs out quite a bit. And I've always found that a bit disruptive, but if you view it through the lens of jazz and look at it as an A format, where the B is a solo section that's kind of deviates from that core pre-composed element of the A section, I kind of understand it and enjoy it a little bit better because I just listen to jazz in a different way than I listen to most mainstream music. And I kind of wanted to adapt that approach here. And I'm not sure that it works because I'm not sure that the violin really said anything to me. It wasn't so much of just understanding that this section is an elongated solo, where the foundational idea doesn't change at all, which is not too different from the rest of the track, but that the violin kind of isn't doing the same thing that the lead melody has done this entire time, which is to push the song forward. The violin seems to just revel in being in the now, which is typically, to me, how I approach, like I said, solo sections in jazz, more so than pre-composed solos in rock and metal. And so I don't know how to interpret this because every way I come at it, I find that it detracts from the song. For me personally, that's a subjective observation there. It does feel like a journey, if nothing else. I just don't think it ends up doing anything that a differently written solo couldn't. It doesn't do anything specific for the song. And I kind of wish that it did. In fact, even towards the end of it, it just kind of tapers off and then we crossfade out of it as if, I don't know, it could be a representation of something like a dream and waking up from one, but from a purely musical standpoint, it feels like they didn't know where to take it and had no idea how to resolve that concept, so they just started something completely different. And that's not a good feeling for me. And so I'm trying not to view it from that perspective. I'm hoping that the lyrics might explain something, or maybe longtime Comus fans who have a really strong understanding of this track and have more experience with it can let me know their interpretation of all of this. But I did find my interest waning a bit around this moment, and the crossfade did not really help bring that back much at all. But it was after this moment that I felt the song took a really strange turn. As I said, we had this wild crossfade, and this is where we entered into what I dub the indie rock emo section, where I feel like it's just a very emotive atmosphere, and the vocals are very emotionally engaged as well. We don't have the weird goblin-y stuff, which feels theatric. We don't have the large vibrato, heavy metal kind of vocal. I don't know if that was around yet. Was it 71? Yeah. I wish I knew exact years. Like, I have a general idea. I know heavy metal was around this time. I just don't know exactly, where like Black Sabbath comes into the picture. But anyways, we've lost that musical theater sort of style at the beginning, the very proper vocals with the wide support and the vibrato to it. And here we just have very forward placed vocals, something very rock, mixed with grit, compression, natural compression put on it. And it just feels sort of angry. It's an exaggerated anger, but still, that mixed with this brand new atmosphere that feels a bit moodier and differently engaged violin work, and then all of the background vocals coming in here as well, creating the rhythmic syncopation with that. It feels like a totally different song. It's like we cross-faded into the next track. I like this ending. Well, it's not quite the ending. We do have I don't know if I'd call it a theme or a motif, but we do return to an earlier section to wrap the song up. But I like this moment here. I think it's a very cool texture, very cool atmosphere. It's like, I don't know, proto emo on acoustic instrumentation with a folk twist. It's, like I said, I've never heard anything like it. I find that to be wildly interesting. But it comes out of nowhere. I don't see how it connects to anything else. As much as I enjoy it in isolation, what does it mean within the larger song? And then, of course, through this, we had this extended violin solo into a brand new, angrier bit that takes us back to an earlier idea. We have an earlier violin part. I don't know if the vocals are the same, but we bring back the rhythmic vocalizations. There's no words, just sort of syllables. It's grunts and hus and stuff like that. Playing around with them rhythmically as if they were percussion instruments. I really like this sort of multi-layered rhythmic pocket kind of syncopation stuff going on, especially with vocals. I think it's interesting. Just like a couple of weeks ago, I had mentioned, what was it? Was it an album review? Dang, I wish I could remember. It might have been a special selection. But we had listened to a group that used vocalization for rhythmic percussion ideas more so than harmony or melody, which is where vocals are typically used. And I said I wanted more of that, and Comus is delivering here. I think that's awesome. I love the idea like this. But like, why do we come back to that section in particular? Why do we come back to it so late into the song, and why do we come back to it to wrap the track up? What's the significance of that, and how did we get here from the bridge and the emo section? I don't know. This is definitely progressive music. And when it comes to progressive music, it usually takes a couple of times to get through to get it. And I think that's where I'm at right now. I'm intrigued by it, but I'm also puzzled. There's a lot of ideas in here that in a vacuum make a lot of sense to me. I think the song definitely works in a moment-to-moment capacity, and there's a lot of really neat ideas that create something very unique, something very Comus. But I don't get it, and I think that impedes my appreciation of it just a little bit, because I really want it to make sense somehow, and maybe it's not designed to make sense, but I really want it to. I think that would vastly increase my interest in it, because otherwise, if everything on this album is just this sort of experimental sound, we threw some stuff together and it doesn't necessarily mean anything on the larger scale, but it is unique and it has a palatability to it, so we just ran with it. And those types of albums, I think, make for really great one-shots, where I'll listen to it once, I'll dig it. It was an interesting ride, but there's no meat there for me to come back to. It's missing that substance. And that's why I always look for this thematic cohesion in music. It's something to bring me back. It's like watching an anthology, whether, it's a like Black Mirror, or maybe it's a movie like ABCs of Death, an anthology of several short stories all smashed together into a single, runtime. I find that those tend to be interesting, but not anything I typically come back to. And I kind of view music the same way. If there's no cohesion, it's a series of neat ideas. I enjoyed my time with it, but what's to bring me back? It needs that cohesion, whether it's thematic or narrative or something that just says that this is designed to be together to be a work of art. And even that feels like I'm being a bit gatekeepery, but I've exhausted this topic, I think, and we're getting pretty late into this reaction. So let me move into some lyrics here, see what's going on with Drip Drip, and if I can't, piece something larger together with this. Well, I remember Leon mentioning that the lyrics were a bit heavy. That they are. Without going into much detail here, the song is about a murderer speaking in rather poetic language about this woman he has murdered who is hanging in front of him. The drip drip is the blood falling off of their body towards the ground. And at the very end of the song, it implies there will be necrophilia involved as well. I'm not going to go over the lyrics. I do think it's an interesting contrast. The flowery description of some of the things that are said, the general language used with the vile element of the song. The main idea here is murder. But every word he sings is, it sort of has a beautiful element to it. He constantly compliments the body of this woman. And like I said, I find that to be interesting. I think, if anything, it paints a picture to this killer's mindset and the way that they see the world around them, that this murder isn't grotesque to them. But beyond that, it's not lyrics I want to revisit. So we're going to wrap that up there then. How that pairs back to the music, there's some eeriness in the music. I mentioned at one point the violin solo goes into some dissonant ideas. We have a lot of the rising tension, especially with the tremolo bowing on the violin. Maybe there is even some sort of ritualistic element to this, as we do have the chanting and the vocal, the rhythmic vocalizations. There's some la la la's in here. And of course, like I mentioned, that the woman is hung up somehow. So maybe the folk instrumentation can stereotypically bleed into that ritualistic element. But aside from that, like I mentioned, the music doesn't really tell me anything that I think would necessarily lean towards this. In fact, I spoke very positively about the music. I will leave this on a final note, though. There is a line in here that says, "As I carry you to your grave, my arms your hearse." This is, some of you OPETH fans might recognize the name of their 1998 album. Apparently, Comus was a huge influence on Michael Akerfeld. So I think that's interesting. I did not know there was going to be that connection. We've actually just recently checked out OPETH, so that's kind of neat. These are my thoughts. Comus's Drip Drip. I don't like that title anymore. It was a lot funner to say it when we started the video. What are your thoughts, though? Is there anything that stands out to you? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe just have your own opinion or interpretation of this track. Please put all of that and anything else you would like to write in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.